Jeremy Corbyn, there's been a bit of confusion about areas of policy, and I wondered if we could just go through a couple of them. I mean, Europe, for example. We've had the Hilary Benn position as shadow foreign secretary, campaign, yes at all cost, respect people's differences has been another one, or consult and make a decision. What is the policy?
The policy is that we want to see a more social Europe, a more inclusive Europe, or a Europe of workers' protection, a Europe of social protection. Those are the Labour demands. They can obviously only be achieved if you're within the European Union to do so. Does it mean we give the Prime Minister a blank cheque to go away and sign off many of the rights that have been very hard won? Absolutely no.
But your instinct is to battle to stay.
My instinct is that because I want to see a Europe that does more for social protection, does do much more for environmental protection, and not simply a Europe of the free market, but also a Europe that does not sign away a lot of public services across the whole continent through the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which has been negotiated secretly by the European Union and the USA.
Welfare, benefit cap. You've called it social cleansing. One shadow cabinet member says it should be consulted on, another says you should keep it. You're the leader. What is the policy?
My view is that the benefit cap is a false figure that was introduced to assume that some families are getting a vast amount of money. The reason the benefit cap was put in was because the government wanted to restrict the benefit levels paid to people largely through housing benefit and through in-work benefits.
So what's the policy?
Well, the policy is that we work within the total budget of 120 billion. My proposal, which the party will have to discuss, and they will, is that we should not impose the current benefit cap because most of it ends up, the effect of it is that many people living in the private rented sector in expensive cities, not just London, other cities, end up being cleansed out of the neighbourhood because they cannot stay there because of the cap.
And if the party disagrees, you'll live with it?
Well, of course. I'm a Democrat.
Trident, you want to get rid of it? Tom Watson, your deputy, wants to keep it. What's the policy?
We're having discussions, obviously. Now, I just been elected leader of the party with a mandate drawn from an enormous party and supporters electorate. And I put it very clearly out there, my view was that when the vote comes in Parliament in 2016, as it probably will, we should not vote to renew Trident because I want to see us fulfil our obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
But if the party says we will back Trident?
To me, this is a very, very serious issue. Everyone, I think, is pretty well aware of my views on wanting to live in a non-nuclear world. Now, there's going to be that debate. That debate is going to be held in a respectful, democratic manner. I hope the party will come to a position of wanting us to become a nation that does not renew nuclear weapons, but we're not going to divide and ruin ourselves as a party over this. There may well be disagreements we all have to live with.
So if they do decide to keep it, you would live with it? You wouldn't resign?
I'm not resigning because I've been elected on a mandate from 250,000 people, more than 250,000 people.
Well, that brings us to how policy is made. I mean, how is Labour policy going to be made? You've already indicated it's the party, you're not going to sort of dictate, you're a Democrat, as you say. What about these other people who voted out there, the 250,000 and the rest? How are you going to tap them in?
Well, I'm hoping that those who are registered as supporters in this election will become full members, and there are indications that many of them have. Our party membership has gone up 30,000 in the first 3 days after the election result of myself was declared, which indicates a great interest in the Labour Party. We're very pleased about that.
Well, do you use conference, therefore, to make a decision?
Well, we have to look at our policy-making process quite a lot. Ultimately, conference must be the main decider. We cannot change all of that by this conference, which starts in 10 days' time. What we're going to have to do is change our policy-making process to empower local constituency parties and affiliated unions and take it through to conference in the future. There's going to be a lot of changes and we bring in a lot of people. I'm also looking at different ways of involving people so that they can make policy suggestions rather than just waiting for somebody to come from somewhere else. I mean, I've done this already with Prime Minister's Question Time today. I've done it during my own leadership campaign. There's great knowledge and skills out there. We need to tap them.
But I already detect that this is not quite the strident Corbyn that used to exist in Islington. You seem to be in quite a compromising mood, to live with decisions that you don't like.
No, I have a very strong view on nuclear weapons. Everybody is very well aware of that. I know there are people that don't agree. I would try and persuade them to go in a different direction. I'm into persuasion, and I'm doing my best to be persuasive. I'm trying to be nice to everybody.
Yeah, but the trouble is, in the long term, the real people you have to persuade are the Greens, UKIP, all the people who did not vote Labour last time.
The fundamentals of the next general election are going to be on the economy, are going to be on education, housing and welfare. Now, those are absolutely key issues, and our economic strategy is going to be central to all this. How we expand the economy, how we create more jobs, how we create fairer opportunities, how we have a welfare system that doesn't force people into desperation and poverty, which is what the tax credit changes yesterday have already done. They've taken £1,300 a year off all those families.
There's one big policy issue coming down the line, and coming down the line soon, and that is Russian forces on the ground in Syria, building up. You don't want to go to war. What would you do then for the people who are dying and fleeing as a result of ISIS and the activities of the Assad government?
Look, I'm in no way a supporter of the Assad government or ISIS, and I don't think anybody would believe that for one moment. But what I would say is that if we go into a bombing campaign, people are going to die in that bombing campaign. People are going to be injured. There may well not be a solution to the whole problem as a result of that.
I mean,
and also,
resistance...
who are our allies in this?
Well,
I ask that question.
Well, they are, in fact, of course, the people fleeing
our
and
allies.
dying. I mean,
the
they are
people we support.
Humanity.
Yes.
So what do we do to save them?
We give all the support we can for refugees at the present time. We look for a political development and a solution in the whole area. We involve all the neighbouring countries, Turkey, Iran, etc., every neighbouring country. And we involve Russia in this as well as the USA and the European Union. I'm looking for a very rapid political development in the area. We're not there yet on what's going to happen. We don't know what the Prime Minister is going to suggest, but we do know is that he authorised drone attacks, which is legally questionable.
And if Europe somehow finally calls for quotas and succeeds in getting most countries to agree, would you advocate Britain taking whatever quota the European Union tells
Absolutely,
us to take?
And I think it was a great mistake that Britain didn't join the European Union refugee programme when it should have done a couple of 3 years ago, because we have a responsibility, just like every other country, under the Geneva Convention of 1951, to take people who are victims of oppression, war and all those awful things. And we should take our share. And indeed, the first thing I did after being elected as the leader of the party was go to a refugee rights demonstration in Parliament Square to demonstrate my support for people's right to safety. They are doing what all of us would do in the same situation, trying to get to a place of safety.
It's been a tricky few days, hasn't it? I mean, over things which really are not about policy, but are indeed about you and your deportment, if you like. I mean, the national anthem. You didn't sing it yesterday, but you're going to sing it in future. When did you last sing it?
Oh, I've sung it. I was there yesterday out of respect for those that conducted the Battle of Britain and conducted the Second World War. It was a very interesting occasion. And I tell you what, I was thinking about my mum and dad. My mum was an air raid ward and my dad was in the Home Guard. They were part of that war. There are a whole generation of people whose whole lives...
Would they like you to have sung the national anthem?
I have no idea. They're not with us anymore.
But you're going to sing it now.
I'll be around, don't worry. And I'll be
so
respectful
in a sense,
and
you're sort of
participative.
recognising that there are certain things that a leader of opposition has to do.
I fully respect that generation and all they achieved. They gave us our health service, our housing, our social structures in Britain. I fully recognise all of that. I want a peaceful world in the future, and I make that clear at the same time. I've spent the last 30 years as an MP for my constituency. I attend all of the appropriate events in commemoration of the Holocaust, of wars, and all those things, and that is what I have to do as a local MP and what I have to do as a party leader, and will do.
And clothes. I mean, there are clothes one can wear on the back benches, and then there are clothes perhaps one has to wear, you know, like a matching jacket and trousers.
I think I've got a lovely jacket on. and I think
No,
it's an
I mean,
appropriate jacket. Do you not like my jacket?
No, I mean, it's a fine jacket.
Thank you very much.
But yesterday was seen to be a moment when you had to spruce up.
I wanted to present myself in a tidy manner, and I hope I achieved that.
But you do have to change some things, don't you? Must admit.
Well, it's a busier life, that's for sure. And
Well, busier than you expected?
The first few days were always going to be very complicated because one has all the immediate things to do. One has to construct the shadow cabinet, one has to do the other appointments, and also the speaking at the TUC, as well as Prime Minister's Question Time today. We've only been there 4 days.
I know, but the difficulty is when you have something like the national anthem in this great moment of remembrance, etc., there are bound to be people who say, hang on a minute, I'm singing the national anthem because this is the country I love. I wonder whether he really loves the country as much as I do. Do you love the country?
Of course I love this country. I was born and brought up in this country, and I love this country for so many things. But I love this country to be socially just, a fair country, a decent country. I love our NHS, and I love those things about our country. And that is what is really important, and that is what Labour is really about.
Your Prime Minister's Question Time today has generally gone down well. You were inclusive and the rest of it, but perhaps the criticism is that whilst you asked on behalf of the citizenry, you did not follow up with killer blows, which people are used to.
I want to do Prime Minister's Question Time in a different way.
Yeah, but you still have to nail the Prime Minister a bit on something, don't you? He's a tough customer.
Yes. Listen, I want to do Prime Minister's Question Time in a different way because I think the public out there are rather bored with this theatrical politics that goes on in Parliament, and I made that very clear. I made that very clear during the whole of the election campaign, and I think I made that very clear in my opening statement today. I just sent out an email and got 40,000 replies, and I selected 6 questions from those which I put to the Prime Minister. Future question times, well, maybe doing it a different way. There's lots of different ways. Yes, there is the follow-up question, but when it just becomes repartee between two men shouting at each other across the dispatch box, the public, you can almost feel them switching off their sets or changing channels. They're all reaching for the remote. Let's go somewhere else. No, I want to be quiet. I want to be calm. I want to ask the questions that are being asked of me that people want to put to the government, and that's what I'll do. You
know what people are saying. You know, Jeremy Corbyn, lovely man, but he isn't up to it, is he? Are you up to it?
Well,
I mean, it's a massive job.
I've been elected to lead our party, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the result we achieved. I'm very proud of the enthusiasm, the optimism, and the determination of all those people that have put me in this have put me in this position. And a democracy, yes, puts pressure on everybody, including me, to do our best to deliver things. That is what democracy is about. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I was able to do it.
Finally, you're at ease here. There's no question. You're relaxed.
I'm always relaxed.
Well, but sometimes it looks a little bit as if you're suffering.
How does one suffer by being relaxed?
No, I mean, when you're facing the media, for example, which some factors of which have been critical and pretty tough on you, and you look unhappy. Well, I think the areas where the media are grossly unfair is the intrusive nature of the way they treat individuals within our society who happen to be related to politicians. But you recognise they watch you every minute and you somehow have to cope with that? I do have to cope, and I will cope. Jeremy Corbyn, thank you for talking to us. Thank you.